Hello, I'm Christine Mitchell Robinson, and this is my research case study presentation. The New York Times Company versus Sullivan case was about an elected official from Montgomery, Alabama, who claimed that he was defamed by the New York Times following the release of an advertisement after a civil rights movement. The statement generally mentioned how the police were directed to act against the students participating in a recent movement. Sullivan felt indirectly attacked because he was in charge of the police and that the statement was not true. As we learned this week, defamation is the publication of a false statement about another person that hurts their reputation. However, in order to move forward with an actual case, the victim must prove that defamation occurred by showing facts in the following elements. 1. A defamatory statement must be made. 2. The statement is false. 3. The statement published with a sense of falsity, intentionally knowing it is wrong. 4. The statement is about the victim. Identification of the victim is present. And 5. The statement injured the victim reputation-wise. Because Sullivan was a public figure, he had to prove that bad intentions behind the statement were made, otherwise known as malice. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled in favor of the New York Times due to the Alabama state defamation laws. In order for a public official to sue for defamation, they must show proof of malice. Sullivan could not prove this, and if continued without it, a First Amendment issue would occur, with the freedom of speech and expression that protects journalists and print companies like the New York Times. In the case of Gertz versus Welsh, the two parties involved are Elmer Gertz and Robert Welsh Incorporated. Gertz was a lawyer to the family of a boy who was killed by a police officer in Chicago, and an article published by Welsh stated that Gertz framed the police officer due to being a communist. The petitioner in this case is a private person because Gertz is not a public official. The same elements that were discussed in the New York Times Sullivan case were also used in this case. However, because Gertz was not a public official, the case would have to be determined by the state. In this case, because some of the statements were determined as libel in Illinois, the jury was in favor of Gertz, who won the case. As a lawyer who represented a family, Gertz probably did not receive much business during the period of time that the article was released and when the case was finished. It was not a good thing to be accused of communism back in the day, so it probably was not easy being Gertz at that moment in time. If I were Welsh, I would have made sure to have facts and proof that the Nuccio case was a part of a conspiracy theory with communism. It is so easy to make things up just to meet a deadline. However, it is key to keep in mind that you are not only representing the company you work for, but also journalists everywhere and yourself. Ethics and moral thinking is always something that should be in the news writing process to avoid lawsuits that cannot be protected by the First Amendment. In the state of Connecticut, the defamatory statement should be given their ordinary meaning so that the context in which the statement is being used is the same as how it is being interpreted. As a member of the jury, you are not bound by the interpretation of the statement given by the plaintiff, defendant, or anyone else who heard or read the statement. The jury must determine its meaning. In Connecticut, The plaintiff must prove 3 elements for a defamatory statement. 1. The defendant published the statement to a third party. 2. The statement identified the plaintiff to a third party. And 3. The plaintiff's reputation suffered injury as a result of the statement. After reviewing the cases of Sullivan and Gertz, I have learned that when covering anything, that I should never make up anything that will hurt someone's reputation. As journalists, we are supposed to be telling stories that are truthful and meaningful to the public. While we do that, we should never intentionally hurt anyone in the process, because like him or her, we are trying to build a credible reputation for ourselves. Therefore, we should keep that in mind and allow the individuals we report on to keep their credible reputation as well.